All right, good morning, everyone. Today is March 5th. I'm Mr. Sheridan. This is Zoology. We're going to finish up our breeding cattle unit and start with a few other EPDs. We introduced EPDs yesterday, expected progeny differences, and these are data points that we use to kind of point us in the right direction, give us an idea of what type of progeny we can expect from these females that we're evaluating. So in this case, we're going to add a couple more EPDs into this discussion that we're having. Again, as a reminder, EPDs are put on by breed registries. So every breed is going to have its own individual set of EPDs. And so depending on what breed you're talking about, they're going to be different, which is why it's important to include breed averages, because over time, breed averages will move. So for instance, the Angus cattle breed that has a tremendous amount of members in livestock and data points, their breed averages are going to move over time. So their, breed average birth weight might be 2.5, not 0. So you've got to make sure that you're paying attention to what that breed average is. Today, I want to talk about the calving ease EPD. This is almost inverse of what the birth weight EPD is. But it's exactly what we're talking about. Birth weight, we talked about that yesterday, indicates how small that calf is going to be. It literally takes the weight of the calf, registers that, and determines whether that cow or bull or whatever it is that you are evaluating, whether they're going to have big calves or small calves. However, there are some cows that can manage bigger calves. And we started putting together a calving ease EPD, because if you get big cows that are big hipped, they can handle a 100-pound, 110-pound calf with no problem. Yep. Thanks. Appreciate it. So what the calving ease EPD, it allows us to give the cow a score of how easily she is giving birth. Basically, whether she has to have assistance, whether she needs a lot of assistance, a little bit of assistance, or whether she can lay down and spit out a calf, even if it's a big calf, on her own. So we want our birth weight EPD to be low. We want our calving ease EPD to be high. We want her to have a high calving ease EPD. Next thing we're going to talk about is our indexes. Yesterday, we briefly touched on TSI, which is Terminal Sire Index, which is what the Charolais breed uses in order to give you an idea of what kind of carcasses those animals are going to have. But what indexes do is they basically give scores. They combine a number of different EPDs to kind of spit out one number. So depending on what you're looking for, the most common index is what the Angus breed did 20, 30 years ago, which is called dollar beef or dollar B. You'll see it. And again, it's a numerical value that takes into account a number of different carcass qualities. So the higher dollar beef value, the better carcass that animal's going to have. Today, we're going to look at one for the Simmental breed, which is the all-purpose index. Similar to these other ones, it's basically combining a number of different EPDs to spit out a numerical score that can be ranked very, very easily. Questions on indexes. Again, these are all breed specific. Each breed is going to have different indexes. So when you get these in a livestock judging contest, you'll have lots of different things to look at. Terms today, we're going to talk a little bit about feet and legs. These would all be pertaining to structural correctness. First one we're going to talk about is toe out. It's just what it sounds like. On that animal's front legs, typically we're talking about the front legs, we're talking about toed out. They're going to be turned like this. This is not a good thing. We don't want them to be toed out. We want those feet all pointed straight forward. So when we talk about toe out, we're talking about their front feet being splayed out. The opposite of that is being pigeon-toed. We also don't want them to be pointed in. We want them, again, to be pointed straight forward. So toed out, pigeon-toed, those are opposite. On their hind legs, there's a few different angles that we use to talk about the angle of their rear leg. When we're talking about this animal, and please forgive me, I'm going to try to draw a hind leg. This is going to be bad. Just bear with me. Okay, so if we're talking about this hind leg, theoretically, we're going to have a little bit of angle, and then and then your hock's here, and then you're coming down, and this is relatively straight, but it's got a little bit of angle to this. It's not straight up and down. If we're talking about a sickle-hocked animal, for those of you who don't know what a sickle is, it's an old harvesting piece of equipment that kind of looks like this. If you think of the old USSR symbol that they have, one of their things on their logo is a sickle. And the reason for that is that this hind leg will look like this. When we have too much angle to that hock, which is that joint right in the middle of their hind leg, when you've got too much angle to that hock, that's what we call sickle hock. So when that angle of the hock, and you're looking at this from a profile, when they're on a head to tail, sickle hock meaning they have too much angle to that leg. It would be the opposite of post-legged. So we're looking for somewhere in between a sickle-hocked animal and a post-legged animal. We want a nice set to that rear hock without having too much. Older cows sometimes, but if you had to choose, do you think we'd rather have sickle-hocked or would we rather have post-legged? And there's extremes of both of these that we don't want to be on either end of them. Sorry? You want post? In my opinion, I think you'd rather have sickle-hocked than post-legged. Because if you got a cow that's out there walking around like this, she's going to have a really hard time standing up. If she's too much sickle-hocked, at least she's got angle to her hock. At least she can still get up. At least she can still function. A little sickle hock is not the end of the world, but post-legged, you can really get into some joint issues, especially when it's cold outside out here. Pretty tough for those animals to move around. Cow-hocked, we looked at from a completely different angle. This you're going to be able to see from a rear view. Okay, so if they got a tail head here, here's your hip. You got a hind leg here. You got a hind leg here. Cow-hocked is that this hock is way too far in, that they're actually butting up against each other. So that where these hind legs are actually touching or close to it. When those hind legs look kind of like this, that's cow-hocked. So we want them to have some strength to their hind legs, keep those hocks separate. In fact, we want wide base, wide tracking females that can get out and move. Cow-hocked is another reference to some of those narrow females that get their hind legs pointed in. Questions about any of this stuff? Okay, so we've got about a half an hour left of class. What I'm going to, the class that you have assigned that we're going to watch first, we're not going to talk through. This is going to be the final exam for the final class that we do for breeding heifers. We'll probably get done early and maybe do another class, but this is the one that I want you to focus on. I want you to take your time. I want you to watch it several times. There is a set of EPDs that go along with it. There's a scenario that goes along with it. There's 11 questions that go along with this class. So I want you to take your time. We're going to take as much time as everybody needs to do this one class. I want you to evaluate them. I want you to evaluate the scenario. All right, let's shut down.